This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Ranella.
Ooh, you're a safari hunter.
I've been to Namibia anyway.
Oh, yeah. What is that? On your right? Is that a gemsbuck?
That's a gemsbuck.
Damn! Look at me go.
I've got a Wyoming pronghorn behind me and a Texas javelina on the other side.
Oh, okay. All right. What's that fish?
The fish is a cod.
Oh,
That's a sculpture.
oh, okay. An Atlantic cod.
Yes.
Are Atlantic cod? I know they've been beleaguered for many, many years, but are they kind of making a little bit of a comeback?
Not really.
Okay.
They're finally getting the management right. They didn't realize there were more discrete stocks than there were. So they were managing them as two stocks. There's 5 now, 4 are distinguishable.
What constitutes a stock?
A population that's either genetically isolated or isolated in terms of its migrations or its breeding.
Okay, so they do two stocks don't mix genetically. They don't breed with one another. They
Right.
use different zones in the ocean.
So you have things like up in the Gulf of Maine, you have a winter spawning stock and a spring spawning stock. Even though they operate in the same waterway, they
okay.
spawn at different times.
They're temporally segregated, not spatially segregated.
Right. And they're also spatially segregated. Like our cod down here, our southern New England stock, which is just recognized. And
Okay.
that's all of the fish south of Cape Cod, basically.
What would it take to bring cod back?
That's a good question. In the southern New England stock, they've stopped all recreational fishing
When did they do that?
this year.
Oh,
This spring.
just this year?
They just identified the stock this year.
Oh.
Or I should say 2025. I'm saying this year. I'm a year behind.
Okay.
But they just identified the stock. It was only in 2025
I see.
that the National Marine Fisheries Service and New England Fishery Management Council went to a 4-stock management scheme rather than a 2-stock scheme.
Okay. Have you ever caught one?
I used to do a lot of cod fishing when I was younger.
Oh. What's the biggest one you ever caught?
Mid-30s.
Okay. Like back in the day, like, I don't know, 1600s, 1700s, whatever, when people would come over here from Great Britain and fish them. How big were they then?
It's a good question. I mean, the record fish, I think, is in the 90s. It wasn't caught that long ago.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
It was probably caught 40 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
They get 100-pound fish off Norway.
Okay.
And that same species, different stock.
I see. Have you ever caught a Pacific cod?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, my family has a cabin in Southeast Alaska, and we catch a lot of them there.
Yeah, we fished out of, I'm trying to think what the name it was, Anchor Point or something, near Soldotna.
Okay.
We're fishing Cook Inlet, and we're halibut fishing, and we caught some cod while we were doing that.
Okay. Yeah, they don't even have a limit on them at our cabin, around Ketchikan.
No, they're generally similar to an Atlantic cod, but they're very, very different in some ways. They kind of look like a scruffy version of an Atlantic cod.
Oh, a less refined version of an Atlantic cod.
Yeah, I say that not in jest. The Atlantic cod seems to be a little bit of a sleeker fish, if a brown fish can be sleek.
Okay. How about culinarily? Is there a distinction there?
I never ate a fresh one. I used to love Atlantic cod. Back when they were easily catchable, I liked them, but the Pacific cod, we used them for halibut bait.
Ah, okay. See, I like the cod, the Pacific cod. I like them more than the halibut.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you know who Paul Kameen is?
I think I've communicated with him over Facebook Messenger a couple of times.
Okay. Yeah, I had a real interesting discussion. I had him on the podcast, and that hasn't aired yet either. Oh, by the time this airs, that one will have aired. But yeah, he recommended he told me a lot of interesting things. And he recommended you. So thanks for taking the time. One thing I don't know if you've looked into me at all, but what I'm focused on is the negative effects of media on hunting and fishing. And that's one focus. And then another focus is I'm concerned about conservation nonprofits that stray from their mission statement for financial reasons. And so that's why I wanted to, because I could see, well, from talking to Paul and from looking at your blog, that there's some that's something that you think about, like the role of money in nonprofits, right?
Yes.
But maybe, so I wanted to talk to you about that and see what your concerns are there. Have you give us an overview of where you see maybe the intersection of financial interests and conservation not serving the resource, and maybe not serving the grassroots angling community. But maybe before that, maybe if you wouldn't mind, could you tell me about your background?
Okay, I basically started out just as a recreational fisherman. I fished all my life. I probably caught my first fish when I was 2 years old.
Where were you born?
I was born in Port Chester, New York. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. And in late '83, I moved to West Babylon on the south shore of Long Island, which is still in the same house we bought in '83.
Oh, wow. And your mom and dad, they were anglers?
Yes.
Okay.
My father was a very ardent angler when he was younger, and we fished together, as long as I lived in town. My mother liked to go out and fish, and bottom fish primarily. She wasn't quite as enthusiastic as my father was, but she enjoyed going out on the boat and fishing with him.
Okay. So you started out as just a fishing enthusiast.
Yeah,
And then
and
where did it go from there?
well, it was the collapse of the striped bass that really made me aware of the problems. I was in college at the time, college and law school, and I worked in a tackle shop. Every summer, from the time I got out of school until the time I went back, I was on the water every morning, striped bass fishing. So I got a good feel for the fish, and all of a sudden, I'm watching the small fish disappear. There were a lot of big bass around, but we started seeing fewer small bass. And then as I was working in a tackle shop, one day a guy walks in, older guy, white hair, big cardboard box under his arm, and I had no idea who he was. I started talking to him. It turned out he was Bob Pond, who, if you know anything about Northeast striped bass fishing.
We are so far outside of my realm of knowing anything. You got to talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. That I know nothing.
Bob Pond was one of those anglers who, right after the Second World War, got seriously into striped bass fishing, seriously into surf casting, and he developed a line of lures, the Atom plugs, that were one of the top surf casting lures in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And he had noticed a problem with the bass, and that box under his arm was a box of jars that he wanted the store's customers to get samples of the reproductive organs of striped bass in 5-pound intervals. So at the time, he could have them analyzed he was willing to pay for it himself to see if they had any chemical contaminants in them. PCBs was a big thing at the time. Ketones was a big thing. Dioxin was a big thing. They were all saying this is why the bass aren't spawning. Nobody wanted to say we're just killing too many of them, which seemed to be what the real problem was at the time. But he and I sat down, we talked for a while. And what he said made a lot of sense to me. It got me interested in fisheries conservation, got me involved in fisheries conservation, and got the owner of the store very upset with me because he didn't like me talking about conservation around his customers because he thought it was bad for business. Where I'd be like, we probably should be releasing more of these fish. He said, nah, bring them in for pictures. I'll put you up on the
Yeah,
wall.
right.
He thought
Right.
it helped out his business a lot.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my beginning. I always say I got involved in fisheries conservation as a matter of self-defense because I like to fish, and fishing in an empty ocean isn't an awful lot of fun.
Yeah. 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 You could be interested in conservation for purely selfish reasons.
Yes. I mean, somebody I know calls it enlightened self-interest.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then what was your career?
I was an attorney. I still have very limited practice doing fisheries conservation work, but that's not what I did for most of my life. I was actually an attorney on Wall Street.
Okay.
I worked for a number of big banks, brokerage houses. I was at Lehman Brothers when it collapsed.
Okay.
But I worked for JP Morgan. I worked for Barclays Capital.
I see. Well, maybe after we were done recording, you can give me some financial advice.
As I said, I was the attorney. I just fixed other people's problems. I didn't make the problems myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever meet Epstein?
I did not.
Okay. You're not in the files anywhere?
No, that I can say safely.
All right. Well, so yeah, lay out your advocacy work. Maybe in your legal work if you want, your legal work in the fishing domain.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I did is I started getting annoyed at the whole situation of where our fisheries were going. So from there, I joined local organizations. We had a group that doesn't exist anymore, the New York Sport Fishing Federation. I became my club's delegate to the federation and got a little bit more involved, ended up, getting to know the state fisheries managers, saltwater fisheries managers. Then when the Sport Fishing Federation kind of did the wrong thing on striped bass, I got involved with some other people. We formed the New York State chapter of the Coastal Conservation Association.
Who did the wrong thing on striped bass?
The New York State Sport Fishing Federation.
Okay.
It is just what you were describing. The people they got their money from, which were the tackle shops, the charter boats, and that type of thing, wanted to see one set of regulations that would allow higher harvest while the anglers had a more conservative stance.
Okay. I don't know. Is now a good time to get into that, or do you want to continue on with your overview first?
We can probably start with that. I mean, it's more interesting talking about fish than me.
Okay. I don't know. I find people pretty fascinating, but all right. So what? I have such a hard time keeping these groups separate. I was having the same problem when I was talking to Paul. What's this? The New York
Sport Fishing Federation.
Oh, okay. Did they start? They don't exist anymore.
They don't exist anymore.
Okay. But did they start out as a group that was concerned about fish?
Yes.
Okay. Who started it? Just like some grassroots fishermen?
It had been around for a while, but yes, what it was there were a lot of fishing clubs on Long Island. So the Federation was intended to bring all the clubs together and point them in the same direction on fisheries issues.
I see. Okay.
And at the time, I belonged to the Babylon Tuna Club, and I was the club delegate.
Okay. And they were under this umbrella of the New York Sport Fishing Federation.
Yes.
Okay. So how did go ahead.
I said what happened was the striped bass had collapsed, and the Atlantic States Fisheries the Atlantic States Fishery Management Commission, ASMFC.
And this is like a multi-state.
It's an interstate compact.
Okay.
That includes all the states from Maine to Florida, and also Pennsylvania, which isn't really a coastal state, but does have striped bass, the District of Columbia, and the Potomac River Fisheries Commission.
Okay. So anyway, and that is that a government agency, or
it's not an agency, and there's been litigation over that just said it is not an agency. It's an interstate compact.
Okay.
Which is basically a group of states contracts to work together for certain purposes, and it's approved by Congress. And at the time that the bass collapsed, the ASMFC was nothing more than really a debating society. It had no power. It could suggest fisheries management measures, but couldn't do anything. And then in 1984, Congress passed the Atlantic Striped Bass Conservation Act, which gave the ASMFC power to, and by the way, I botched the name. I'm not sure why I used it all. It's the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission.
Okay. Atlantic States Marine Fisheries
Is actually the name of the organization.
Okay.
But it gave the ASMFC power to all its member states. And if a member state refused to adopt the management measures, they could go to the Secretary of Commerce, who would impose a moratorium on that state's striped bass fishery until it complied.
Oh. Okay.
So they actually got some enforcement.
I mean, that's a lot of teeth right there.
And in 10 years, they rebuilt the stock.
Oh, whoa. That's wild.
They put in a very restrictive management plan that basically wouldn't allow more than 5% of the spawning stock to be harvested in any one year. And in 1995, the bass was declared recovered.
Oh, well, this proved that's his name, right? The guy that made the lures.
Bob Pond.
Yeah, proved Bob Pond's conjecture that it wasn't contaminants, it was overharvest.
Yeah, and that's pretty well decided now. It's overharvest along with some bad weather events, because striped bass need very special conditions to spawn.
Okay.
But overharvest was the primary cause.
Okay.
And so now it's, how do we manage these fish? What the striped bass fishermen here in New York wanted was to continue restrictive regulations, which was one fish at 36 inches.
Like that's the biggest it can be to keep it?
The smallest.
Okay.
And what the party boats and the tackle shops wanted was what ASMFC said is the minimum requirement, which was 2 fish at 28 inches.
That's a big difference.
That's a big difference. And what they were saying is, we can have these 2 fish and we'll sell more charters and we'll sell more tackle if people can go out and bring all these smaller fish home.
Okay. And is this when All right. I just I like to think of these things in terms of the money getting involved in the conservation. So I want to unpack that a little bit as we go along. Is this when the membership of the New York Sport Fishing Federation starts to shift in terms of their mindset and what they're trying to accomplish?
Not the membership, but the leadership.
Okay.
The membership would get at a meeting and say, we want one at 36. And there were some very heated meetings. The leadership would say, but that's not what the tackle shops want, and that's not what the charter boats want. Because most of the Federation's funding came from a big fishing show that they did every February.
Okay.
And if the tackle shops and the charter boats didn't support that show, they didn't have enough funding to run the organization.
Okay. Yeah.
At one point, one of the debates was whether commercial fishing for striped bass should be allowed. And there was a senator who actually was willing to put a bill in to outlaw commercial fishing for striped bass.
And had that always been a thing, commercial fishing for striped bass? Okay. Is it still?
It still is. It's illegal in some states, but quite honestly, it's not that important today.
Okay.
It only accounts for 10 to 15% of all striped bass mortality.
Okay. All right. Yeah, carry on. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. But what happened was the Montauk Boatmen and Captains Association.
Are they under the New York Sport Fishing Federation?
They were a member group.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of their members, charter boat captains, they fished commercially for striped bass when they weren't carrying charters. And they didn't want the Federation to support the game fish bill because it would hurt their income stream.
All right.
So, of course, I was always a troublemaker. And on behalf of the Babylon Tuna Club, I put a motion on the floor to throw the Montauk folks out of the organization if they wouldn't.
Whoa! Good for you.
And there was some intense debate. I lost the vote. But after, the president of the Federation took me aside and he said, we couldn't do that because it takes, I think at the time they said $30,000 to run this organization. And without the Montauk captains, we wouldn't have enough money.
So there must have been paid staff.
One paid executive director.
Okay.
And of course, that was in the pre-computer days. So we're talking about mailed newsletters and a lot of office costs.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. You were going to say something about some senator?
No, I said the senator had a bill that he was willing to put in to outlaw the commercial fishing.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So
and he was very influential on state fisheries issues.
Okay.
No, if he had put the bill in and pushed it, it had a fair chance of passage.
Okay. What's his name?
His name was, remember, this happened
in the early 80s.
Well, around 95.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Maybe a little sooner. Probably happened around 1990 at that point. So his name was Owen Johnson, but he's deceased.
Okay. And he had his heart in the right place. You liked his policies when it came to fisheries.
He was influential. Whether, some things he did we liked, some things he did we didn't like. But in that case, people wanted to support his bill.
Okay. So they went with 2 fish at 28. I take it.
Well, no. The Federation did. The state didn't.
Oh, okay.
Because the Federation got a huge meeting together, which turned into a complete blow-up. Because, again, they had it staged where they had all the charter boats saying, yes, we need the money, we need the anglers' money, and there were probably 150 anglers in the room. And once again, I shot my mouth off. I pulled my wallet out of my pocket and I said, the angler's money is our money, held my wallet in the air and said, and we want one at 36.
Nice.
And that pretty well blew up the meeting.
Okay. You probably had a
And
lot of people that thought just like you, though, right?
the dedicated striped bass community was really behind the one at 36.
Okay.
The striped bass debate has always been since then, should the striped bass be a sport fish, where we treat it as a fish that you primarily catch to enjoy? That high levels of catch and release, we manage it as for abundance. Or should it be a panfish and we manage it for for yield and how many people can take home?
Oh, yeah.
That
And that's a stark, like, that's a pretty strong distinction between how you would manage for one versus the other, I suspect.
Yeah, and in freshwater, they do it all the time. You don't manage a brown trout like a bluegill.
Right.
People understand that one is a fish that people enjoy catching, and yes, you can eat it, and you take a few home, but primarily you can have fly fishing only water, catch and release only water, and manage it for its recreational opportunities. Well, bluegill's a panfish, and you take them home for food.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming you come down on the lots of fish, but you can't keep any,
Well, not can't keep any,
or can only keep a few. Yeah.
reduced landings. And economically, it makes sense because most striped bass fishermen don't keep a lot of bass, at least on the coast. I understand in the Chesapeake Bay that's different, but on most of the coast, striped bass are managed or should be managed and treated by anglers as a recreational fish.
Are they good eating?
Yeah, they're not bad.
But they're not like a highly coveted culinary fish.
It's funny because they are in the restaurants. On the coast, people would rather eat summer flounder. They would rather eat black sea bass. They would rather eat dolphin, that is mahi-mahi, not the mammal.
Right.
There's so many other things on the coast. Bass are okay.
Yeah.
I've eaten them. I enjoyed them when I've eaten them. I haven't kept one since like 1990. Just out of personal choice. But when I used to keep them, yeah, they were good food.
Okay.
But there are so many other choices that it makes more sense to manage them for the recreational opportunity. That's where the money actually is.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right.
The charter boats, the party boats, they make their money getting people who just want to take something home. The typical six-pack charters.
Okay.
The light tackle and fly charters get the more recreationally oriented people.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So there's these charters, like party boat, they don't take out groups to catch and release.
Again, the traditional six-pack doesn't. Mm-hmm. Although they end up releasing a lot of fish because with a one fish bag limit, which is what we have today, and a very narrow slot size because bass are in pretty serious trouble again.
You say again, so since the 90s, they had a bit of a resurgence and now they're not doing well again?
Yeah, the stock biomass peaked around 2004 and then entered a slow decline.
Okay.
They were declared overfished in 2019. As of 2017, the stock assessment used 2017 as the last year. And biomass is increasing because there's some big fish in the pipeline that are protected now because now we have a slot size limit. In the ocean, you can only keep one between 28 and 31 inches now.
Oh, I see. Man, so that's tight.
It's very tight. And once you get over 31 inches, you've got older fish adding to the biomass, but actually abundance in numbers is going down because there hasn't been a decent spawn in the Chesapeake Bay, which produces between 70 and 90% of all the bass on the coast since 2018. The last 7 years have the lowest average reproduction in the history of the Maryland survey that goes back to 1957.
And that's just by dint of environmental or climate, not weather circumstances or whatever.
Yeah, they're not 100% sure what's the key cause, but bass tend to do better after a cold winter with a cool, wet spring.
Oh, they spawn real shallow water?
In rivers.
Okay.
They're anadromous. They ascend rivers.
Do they spawn on like gravel beds?
Not the way a salmon would. They deposit their eggs at what they call the maximum turbidity, which is where the water is most. It's kind of on a freshwater, saltwater line with certain temperature requirements. The eggs don't survive under 12 degrees centigrade or above 20 degrees. Larvae start dying over 21 degrees centigrade.
Oh, now I can start to see why it's real episodic. The spawning success is very touchy.
So typically you'd have a strong year class, then 4 or 5 years later you'd have another strong year class. And otherwise, you'd have spawns where what they call a juvenile abundance index is below average, but not badly so.
Okay.
So you would have, right now, the long-term average is 11, which is relation to how many juvenile bass are caught in a net that they use to sample them. And in the past, you'd see a lot of 6s and 7s and 8s, and then a few really high ones. You might have a 30 one year.
Okay.
The highest, I think, was 59 and something. It was between 59 and 60 in 1996.
Okay.
But lately, last 7 years, the highest one we had was 4, and we had some that were like at 1.2.
Oh.
Most of them were below 3.
You guys need a good spawn. What's it looking like this year?
We don't know, because again, the problem is we have a cold winter. That's good. But most of Maryland, which is the single largest producer area, is in a drought right now. So we're not going to get high water flows, which is a problem.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the water temperature issue. If we start getting rapid warming, which we've had in recent years, and the temperature goes over 20 degrees centigrade, which is 68 degrees, we're going to start getting a lot of mortality again. And the spawning season has gotten a lot shorter because the temperatures rise quickly in the spring, and they think that might be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we get a cool spring, we may have some serious problems.
Do you still fish for striped bass?
Not as much as I used to. I moved to the South Shore of Long Island, and I still will go back to Connecticut to fish with a friend. It actually takes me as much time to get up to Connecticut as it takes me to get my boat, go down to the marina, get my boat, and go down through the inlet and into the ocean. So I usually drive up to Connecticut when I bass fish.
Okay. What do you fish for at home?
Shark, tuna.
Okay.
Summer flounder. I fish for weak fish in the spring. Then I switch over to summer flounder. I do a little bit of fishing on the wrecks for black sea bass and scup. But around the third week of June, I switch over to shark and then tuna in July, and that's really what I do for most of the rest of my season.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You spend a lot of time. You spend a lot of time on the water.
Yeah, I do some fun stuff now. Almost 10 years ago, 2017, I had a professor come to me, because he chairs the New York Marine Resources Advisory Council, and I sit on the council. And he goes, "Look, I have a problem. I have students. I have grad students. They're PhD candidates. We've got a great grant to study sharks, but we don't know how to catch them or where to go. Can you go and give them some hints?" I said, "I'll do better than that." I said, "If you cover my fuel and bait expenses, I'll take them out and show them how to do it."
Oh, nice.
And I've been doing that ever since.
Okay. Are you
If-
involved? Like, are they doing research on the fish that they're catching on your vessel then?
Yeah, we're doing acoustic tagging. They take blood samples. They take tissue samples. They do fecal swabs. And we also they're starting to do satellite tagging.
What are you trying to figure out?
A lot of different things. One woman who got her PhD doing a lot of work on the boat was looking at contaminants in the blood of sharks in the New York Bight. That was the subject of her PhD dissertation. And she found that mercury was very high in some species, like short fin makos, which is the fish that
People
everybody
like to
wanted.
eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mercury on even the little ones is off the charts. Very, very high mercury levels.
Huh.
Yet thresher sharks, which are actually also good eating fish, even the big ones don't have much mercury in them.
I'll be damned. So it's got to be like a difference in what they eat, right?
Yeah.
What their prey is.
Makos tend to feed higher on the food chain.
Well, no mystery there then.
Yeah, they can chase down a small tuna. They eat bluefish. And so you've got bioaccumulation of the mercury as it comes up through the food chain.
Okay.
Thresher sharks tend to feed on small schooling fish. Now, herring, mackerel, menhaden. And so you don't have the bioaccumulation there.
Okay. All right. So back to your advocacy work. I think you've laid out pretty well your concerns and interests with the straight bass. Have you worked on any other species in terms of trying to direct management and policy?
Yeah, once you get involved in this, you start finding the various fish that need help at the time. I sat on the Mid-Atlantic Fisheries Management Council for a while, back in the early 2000s.
And what's that group?
It's one of the federal fishery management councils that basically draft the management plans that then are sent to the National Marine Fisheries Service for approval.
Okay.
There's the councils, let me get it right. There's New England, Mid-Atlantic, South Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, Pacific, North Pacific, and West Pacific.
Okay.
And each manage the fisheries within their region. So that was primarily summer flounder, black sea bass, scup, and bluefish. They manage some other commercial species as well, but as far as the recreational species go.
Okay.
And I now sit on National Marine Fisheries Service Highly Migratory Species Advisory Panel. So that is primarily shark. For me, it's shark, tuna, billfish, and swordfish. But my expertise is shark and tuna.
Okay.
And then I've done some other things. I had my one campaign that failed miserably, which was trying to get some decent measures in place to conserve and rebuild winter flounder. They're a fish that never got much attention management-wise, but they were one of the backbones of the recreational fishery. In 1984, New York anglers took home between 13 and 14 million winter flounder.
Wow. Well, it seems like something people would care about.
Yeah. Except, and by the way, now You measure the take home in the hundreds. The
Are
stock
you
is
serious?
Yes.
What happened there?
Stock has completely collapsed. You could see it coming. Again, it's the situation you had no little fish. You were catching big fish, no small fish. The state tried to put meaningful regulations in place in the mid to late 1980s. And again, here come the tackle shops and the party boats saying, you can't do that, it'll hurt our business.
Well,
So
doesn't the thing going extinct hurt your business?
you see, the problem is it's always a short-term focus. In 2010, I sit on the New York Marine Resources Advisory Council. In 2010, I put a motion on the table to shut down the winter flounder fishery, which had collapsed by then.
Oh,
I
mean, it's like now you're talking like less than 0.1% of what the historic catch was.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, 2010, it wasn't quite that bad, but you could see the writing on the wall. It was, maybe 1% of what it was.
When 1% is good, that's bad.
And I put a motion on the table supporting a moratorium. Everybody opposed it. And the one woman who represented the tackle dealers on the council is, oh, but this is the first fish of the season that brings people into the shops. We don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Couldn't consider that maybe if they tried to rebuild them,
Mm-hmm.
the shops would have more business. It's just we have this little piece and we don't want to lose it.
Well, again, that goes back to your short-term perspective thing that you were saying,
And that's one thing I'll tell you that I took away from my time on Wall Street is the biggest companies in the country think the same way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's human nature, right?
It's more than that. If you're a big company and you're the CEO, I would remember years ago, tackle companies were small. You had Penn Reels over here. You had Hedden making rods and reels and fishing lures somewhere else. You had Shakespeare as an independent company. You had all of these. You had Zebco out there. You had Fluger out there. All of these were independent tackle companies. Now, there's only 3 or 4 companies out there for the most part, and they bought them all up and consolidated the industry.
Okay.
Now, if you're a CEO or you're a C-level guy in one of these companies, you're waiting for your annual bonus. They don't base that on what the season's going to look like 10 years from now. It's what you sold this year. So everybody is managing for this year's salaries, this year's bonuses, and this year's promotions in the big companies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's no different in the tackle industry than it is anywhere else. And if you're a small shop, to be fair, you have your rent, you have your note on your inventory coming due, you have to pay your employees. So you're looking at short term as well. I remember somebody that no longer works. She retired from the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. But she was talking to me one day that she talked to a shop owner about summer flounder rules. It says, won't these rules make your business better in 2 or 3 years? And the guy just turned to her and said, I can't think about 2 or 3 years. I have to get through this year first.
Yeah.
And it's that short-term view that really colors fisheries management.
Yeah. Yeah. What would make a lot of this stuff better is if there were fewer fishermen.
Well, that's true. I mean, you think about hunting now, for a lot of places, particularly out west, you've got to apply for a tag.
Oh, yeah, and draw odds have. Yeah. So this is something I focus on and am trying to document to the best of my ability. But yeah, we live in the era of reduced hunting opportunity, things going from over the counter to draw, bag limit reductions, seasoning shortening across, that's like the story in my mind of the modern era of of outdoor pursuits, and yet the nonprofits spend a significant fraction of their energy on trying to recruit more hunters and fishermen. You know,
I mean, I've got about over 100 preference points for the Maine moose hunt.
how about so you can get more than one a year, obviously, because you're not 100. How many can you get a year?
No, preference points just to get a permit.
Yeah. Oh, okay, but you can buy more than one a year.
I buy 10 entries a year, and they used to give you one a year, but now they've done something with if you've been there long enough, you get a few extra.
So the most you can buy is 10?
No, you can buy them in packs of 10. I buy 10 a time, 10 entries into the lottery a year.
Okay. Yeah, I always get bonus point and preference points mixed up. Preference points are the ones your name goes into the hat, but your name is going in the hat 100 times.
Right.
Bonus points are like when you exceed the threshold, you get a tag.
Yeah, no, these are preference points. My name
Yeah.
just goes into the hat. It still doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
But yet, you get a fish like a blue marlin that is badly overfished. And any one you catch, you can bring home.
Wow.
There's no limit on how many times you can go out.
Yeah.
Florida is a little different. Florida is starting to tag. Florida has, for Goliath grouper and for tarpon, they have tags to keep them.
Oh, you so wasn't Goliath grouper like you couldn't? I thought you couldn't keep them at all in Florida.
There is now a tag that allows you to keep some mid-size. It's only been in place for a few years.
I see. Have you ever eaten one of those?
I have not.
Man, you've ever eaten a grouper?
Perhaps once.
Hmm.
I never caught a legal grouper.
Hmm.
I've caught
I've caught some grouper. I was just in Cabo spearfishing, and then I do a little spearfishing in the Bahamas too. Those things, like the head on a grouper is so good eating.
Okay.
You like fish head soup?
In the days when I used to keep striped bass, I used to make fish chowder out the head and the rack. And
Okay. Oh man, I love fish head soup. I never thought I would, but God, I mean, it just sounds gross, but so good.
there's a lot of meat on a head.
Oh yeah, like surprising amount. And people think you're eating like I don't know what they think, the brain or something. You're just eating white meat that you've picked off the head after you steam it, and then you make a soup.
Yes.
You know.
It's the cheeks, it's the back of the head, it's all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah. And then you make that soup up, and then the leftovers, you put them in the fridge, and the next day it's solidified from all the collagen. It's just amazing stuff.
Yeah, I used to do it more New England style with a cream base.
Okay, I should try that, like a chowder. Yeah. Put some potatoes and carrots in there. Is that what you do? Yeah, that sounds good. Paul talked a lot about the ASA when I was talking to him, and how they started out as a kind of a conservation organization, but that it turned into like another lobbying arm of the sport and commercial fishing industry.
Well,
would you go ahead?
It's beyond the ASA. And I have to tell you, I was in.
Did I say what that is? It's the American. I think I did, but just in case, it's just for the listener. The American Sports Fishing Association, right?
Yeah, it's the largest trade group in the fishing tackle industry.
Okay. Yeah. Give me your take on them.
Well, their job is to support their members' business. And that's what they're doing. For a while, they had, I'm trying to recall if he was a president or executive director, who had a conservation outlook, pro-conservation outlook. But he's not there anymore.
They give him the boot.
No, he retired. He was getting older and he retired.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have is a group called the Center for Sport Fishing Policy, which includes the ASA, the National Marine Manufacturers, Coastal Conservation Association, the National Marine Retailers of the Americas, I believe that's the name, and a number of other industry groups that is now a consolidated lobbying organization. They basically exist to make political donations and affect the fishing industry. The Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership is involved with these folks, which surprises a lot of people, because that group has been pretty decent on upland issues and freshwater issues.
Oh, I think of them as the good guys.
Yeah, until you get into salt water.
So they, in effect, advocate for more liberal bag limits and longer seasons and
yes, and
looser slots, what I have you. Yeah.
And taking fisheries management away from the federal government and giving it to the states, weakening the Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act, that's the backbone of federal fisheries management. They actually went so far last October as to oppose a reduction in striped bass harvest.
Okay.
Along with the rest of the Center for Sport Fishing Policy.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And, when you ask who are their, I believe they call them conservation partners, who fund their marine business, their marine advocacy, all of a sudden you're finding the ASA again.
Okay.
This goes back to your question about,
man, that's so
yeah.
that's so messed up. That's so messed up. Like, what's the vision here amongst the these groups, like the like, let's say the ASA, like when they're sitting around, maybe not in a board meeting, but just individually when they're in bed at night or whatever, is it like, what we're trying to do here is maintain the minimum amount of fish out there that will whereby people will still buy a license and tackle and go?
I can't say factually what they say behind the scenes, but I can tell you what their actions have been.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the actions have been to increase what they call increase access. And access really translates to more dead fish.
Yeah.
Because
it's a euphemism.
Yes, it's a very big euphemism. The other is, quote, regulatory flexibility to allow more access and let people kill more fish.
Yeah.
I mean, the big debate right now is South Atlantic red snapper, which is a weird situation. The problem down in the South Atlantic is the red snapper stock was horribly depleted. I think back around 2007, maybe 20 years ago, the spawning stock biomass was down to something like 3% of its potential. And that put in some pretty serious restrictions. Overfishing still went on. And finally, it got to the point, because of Magnuson-Stevens, where they shut down the entire fishery, recreational and commercial. when they reopened it, the recreational season lasts between 1 and 3 days. The limit is 1 fish any size. The problem is the red snapper are rebuilding. People are seeing all sorts of red snapper out there. But they're still being overfished recreationally. And commercial fishermen have actually sued the National Marine Fisheries Service.
Even though you can only catch one, it's a 1-day season, they're still getting overfished?
Keep one. The problem is there's a lot of fish live on those reefs.
Uh-huh.
So you're fishing for grouper, you're going to catch a red snapper. And because you're fishing them in deep water, when you release them, there's a very good chance they won't survive.
Okay, gotcha. Do
You can
you have to use those deep water release mechanisms?
They require either a descender or a venting tool on the boat.
Okay.
How many are being used? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. There's probably fish floating around on the surface all over the place.
But the big problem is most of the mortality occurs during the closed season.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to that is you have to close the season for everything for a while.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you don't allow any bottom fishing for 3 months of the year, 4 months of the year.
To support this one fish. I could see, yeah, like you say, this is an interesting situation. And this is ripe for pissing people off, for sure.
Yeah, because you obviously have a lot of fish. And people go out there to fish for grouper and they're catching red snapper.
Mm-hmm.
But they're killing them, and they're killing too many of them, so the stock's being overfished. They proposed the closure, NIMS proposed the closure, and it looked like they were going to put it in.
Which might not probably even do anything, right? Because there's still going to be like this bycatch problem.
Well, not if you can't fish for grouper for 3 months.
Oh, okay. That's part of what they were proposing.
Yeah, they were proposing a complete regional shutdown from a spot off South Georgia to roughly maybe St. Augustine or Daytona, Florida, North Florida and South Georgia. That, if they closed that for a few months, it would severely relieve the problem. Seriously relieve the problem.
Why those months?
That's when most of the snapper bycatch was happening.
Okay.
So, of course, the response isn't, hey, that's a good idea. The response is, when a new administration came in 25, tank that rule. Because people aren't going to be able to fish for grouper, so, of course, we're not going to sell stuff. It's going to be bad for business.
Yeah.
And they got local politicians on their side, congressmen on their side. And they started putting pressure on the National Marine Fisheries Service. The changed administration means you had new administrators on a National Marine Fisheries Service and at the Commerce Department, who are perhaps more sympathetic to the business arguments than the old administrators were.
Mm-hmm.
And now, all of a sudden, they pulled the rule for the closure. I'll take a step back. They actually settled the lawsuit with the commercial fishermen and agreed to publish a rule by June of 25. They published a rule, but it didn't include the closure. It clearly didn't address the overfishing problem. It just basically rearranged deck chairs on the Titanic and didn't do much else. And you ended up in a situation where the commercial guys sued them again, because now they went back on their settlement agreement and they're still overfishing red snapper. So the new move is, let's let the states manage red snapper, because the states aren't bound by the National Marine Fisheries Service and they can allow them to overfish and they can count the fish differently. Well, let's not use the federal data anymore. And there are bills introduced in Congress that say that you have to use state data when it exists instead of federal data.
Wow.
And anyway, the ASA supports all this.
Okay.
as does the Center for Sport Fishing Policy. So when you ask what they're thinking, my attitude is, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I know what your actions are.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I was gonna know one, if I could only know one, I'd rather know that one. That one's more telling, you know? Uh, have you ever seen a fishery get so bad, so depleted that even the commercial interests are like, maybe we should dial back a little bit?
That's why the Magnuson-Stevens Act, what was at the time the Fisheries Conservation and Management Act of 1976, was originally passed. That the groundfish fishery in New England, that all of the or a lot of the coastal fisheries were in such bad shape that even the fishermen were saying, "We have to fix this." Of course, back then, you had an obvious enemy because you had the foreign trawlers that were coming into, within 12 miles of the beach. And one of the things that happened back in '76 is they got pushed offshore.
There was like a law that said you can't fish within like some number of miles.
Yeah, we declared an exclusive economic zone of 200 miles.
Oh, okay.
And that's the standard now in international law.
Oh,
But at
okay.
the time, it was still being debated.
I see. That's interesting.
That led to something interesting because the South American countries in the Pacific had been doing that for years.
Oh, really?
So when we said that we were gonna do it, the Pacific tuna fleet, the American companies that were fishing for tuna off those South American countries, said, "No, we don't want a 200-mile zone because that means we can't sneak in off Peru and Ecuador."
Oh, I thought you were saying that Peru and Ecuador had it already.
They had it in place, but our guys were violating it, saying it was illegal.
Well, why couldn't they Oh, but they're saying we can't continue to say it's illegal if we do the same
If
thing.
we do the same thing. So
Yeah.
in Magnuson-Stevens, not Magnuson-Stevens, that's what it's called now, but the original law was just Fisheries Conservation and Management Act. When they defined what a fish was, they excluded tuna. And and we had Japanese longliners, fishing at the edge of our continental shelf for tuna
Oh,
because we excluded the foreign fishing boats, but these boats weren't fishing boats because they were targeting tuna.
tuna. Okay. Huh. Yeah. Do you think the leadership in some of these big trade organizations like ASA, you think they fish?
Oh, I know they fish.
Okay. And still, even though they're passionate fishermen, still they always err on the side of more extraction.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely fish.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
I mean,
I
that's
I don't I don't okay. I just what I mean I don't I know so little about what you've until this conversation I've known so little about what you've been up to that I don't want to cut the conversation off if you got more topics you want to talk about, but
I think the other topic is something that you sort of touched on too. It's the effect of industry, not just on the NGOs, but on the publishing industry.
okay.
Basically, even though I still write for some publications, I have been blackballed from multiple publications for being a conservation advocate.
Yeah, I bet.
I had a column in one regional magazine, and all of a sudden I said, "Well, we would just want some fresh blood. We wanna change people around."
Yeah, and that magazine gets a bunch of money from the fishing industry.
Well, all our advertisers.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I know multiple people who lost their ability to write for various publications
Oh,
because
man, yeah.
advertisers come to them and say, "I'm gonna pull my ads." Probably the worst example I ever saw there used to be, it was a magazine and website up here that is called Nori Saltwater. And again, it doesn't exist anymore. But the editor was a friend of mine, the publisher. And when we were going into a striped bass hearing, it was like in the early 2000s, 2000, 2001, 2002. There was a hearing on striped bass, and the big debate was what I said before. Should this be a fish managed for large individuals and abundance, or a lot of little fish and harvest? And he actually went and put up on the website he had for his magazine, he asked his readers, what would you prefer? Overwhelmingly, they preferred managing for lower harvest, greater abundance, and larger fish. He went into a hearing and he said, he didn't say, this is what I want. He said, this is what my readers say they want. And he gave the readers' opinions. The next day, his publication was subject to a boycott, as all of the tackle dealers and marinas and everything else pulled their ads from his magazine.
Oh, that is such a great story. Holy shit.
Because,
and then the publication ceased to exist?
well, no, he actually published a retraction to get on their good side.
I'm sorry for telling people what my readers want.
And he got completely out of fisheries management issues. He was very active before.
Oh.
It was going to destroy his business.
Yeah.
He's since sold the business and it doesn't exist anymore. But
wow, that's a crazy story. Yeah. So this is why you started your own blog.
Because when you write your own and you're not beholden to anyone else for money, you can tell what you believe is.
Yeah. Yeah. Freedom. That's why I'm trying to have a little bit of a voice in the hunting space, is because everybody that makes money off hunting and fishing, same thing. Like you, same.
Yeah.
Same idea. Like, they're so constrained in what they can say in ways that you wouldn't even imagine, you know? Like, they can't say anything about these companies that are leasing up millions of acres and ripping ranches and farms out of state access programs. They got to be mute about that. Like, because I don't know, people that hunt those on those leases, that they buy my clothes. I don't want to tick them off. You know, it's just the money, like, is so deeply ingrained in everything that they're just. It's like, I would hate to have a job in the hunting space or fishing space, because
I mean,
I just can't imagine just like having to go around so often not saying what I really think.
look what happened to Don Thomas at Ducks Unlimited.
Oh yeah, okay. This is that writer that he took some stance on something that
Public
Ducks on.
access. There was up in your part of the world, up in Montana, there was a billionaire media guy. I think he was some cable TV or something. I had a ranch up there, and he didn't like the Montana stream laws that let you access a river by going in on a public right-of-way. And he wrote something in a local Montana paper that had nothing to do with DU. And he said, and this guy, he's going to be paying all sorts of money, hiring lawyers to try to keep you out of public water. And it got back to DU. DU canned him. Basically unpersoned him, took everything he ever wrote off the DU website or any mention of his name, and gave the offended billionaire their Conservationist of the Year award to make him happy.
Unreal. That's such a crazy story.
While all the time saying that this billionaire didn't complain to DU. They just heard about it as if they're reading this little Monday.
Right. Yeah, they probably got a fat ass check.
Yeah, but we can't have anybody, causing dissent among our DU family was the official comment.
Oh my God.
So, the guy was a big donor and that's all he cared.
Oh my, do you know Don?
I don't. I used to
Okay.
love his writing.
Do you think maybe I should reach out to him? Is he doing anything now? Like,
He's every now and then I see he writes something.
okay. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him, see if he wants to come on. Yeah, I got all kinds of problems with DU. We did me and my little group did a deep dive on National Wild Turkey Federation last year. And that is a very problematic organization. I won't get into it now, but it's like episode 144 of our podcast if you want to listen to it. But there's just a lot of like financial indiscretion and like misreporting and bloated estimates of how many acres they've conserved and opened access to, and overstating their roles, understating how much they spend on advertising. And so we're starting to look into DU a little bit now in the same vein. But that's yeah. Go ahead.
The problem with all of the groups, I don't care if it's a hunting group or fishing group, whatever it is they depend on funding.
Yeah.
They have a building. Maybe they bought their old building. Maybe they're paying rent, but they either have rent or a mortgage. You have utility fees. You have staff fees. And suddenly you find yourself, your job isn't maintaining the resource anymore. It's maintaining the business. And so your efforts don't go to what was originally your business goal or your conservation goal. Your efforts go into maintaining membership and keeping your donors happy so you can keep the organization itself going, even if the organization lost its purpose.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird, like, why? And there's a sense it was just like, why even call yourself? Why even be a nonprofit?
Well,
like, why not have it just be okay? We give you money, like we the hunting industry or fishing industry give you money, and you lobby on our behalf, and just do away with the whole veneer of being a conservation organization.
Because I think they all start out with good intentions and they mean to be a conservation group.
Yeah, and then it just gets bastardized over time.
The initial generation, the founders retire or die. They get bigger, and suddenly they need to support the bureaucracy. They're not supporting the mission anymore.
If there was just more people that were like, people are pretty apathetic. They just want to go out and hunt and fish. They don't want to think about the future of hunting and fish. They want fishing. They just want to do it. And that was me, man. Like, I didn't do anything until 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm 55 years old. I did nothing to give back. Unlike you. But like, if people were more energized about conservation issues and public lands and public accessibility, et cetera, they could just form their own nonprofits.
That's what happens.
But I have one. Did you know about mine?
I did not.
Okay, so it's not mine. I co-founded it, but we have this group called Hunters for Access, and we operate in 4 or 5 different states now. What we do is we show appreciation to landowners that are enrolled in state access programs. Like, we have this block management program here, 6.9 million acres of farmers and ranchers that open up their land to public hunting. They get paid to do it, but not as much as they could get paid by an outfitter, or a lease land company like Infinite Outdoors or Land Trust or HRBO or whatever. I can't get that acronym mixed up all the time, but so we don't spend a dime on salary. or at 100, when we take in money, 100% of it gets translated into an appreciation gift for
See,
access provider. And I just don't see, and we do get a little help from the hunting industry. Once in a while, a company will, like a couple boot companies, Schnee's and Kenetrek, just gave us several pairs of boots that will, raffle off or whatever at our little pint night fundraisers to raise money to buy appreciation gifts, but like in this case, here's a nonprofit that's doing good stuff for access, and I don't see how it could ever become corrupted. I guess maybe if we got a staff member, then it could.
but you're also not in the political and regulatory space.
Right.
All of a sudden now you need attorneys. You need a lobbyist. You need, once you get into that space, if you want to go to the State House and start lobbying for certain provisions, you got to hire somebody who knows his way around the State House. You've got an expense. If you want to get involved at the federal level, you need somebody who knows how to get around Capitol Hill.
And what's just so screwed up about it is that once you go down that road and you have those expenses, the things that you lobby for fundamentally change.
That's right. But if you don't incur those expenses, you can't play in that arena.
Yeah, it's just like what you're trying to accomplish, what your group is fundamentally trying to accomplish changes dramatically just in the quest for funds. It's like the whole original purpose is morphed into something unrecognizable by your need to fund the operation. Isn't that so messed up?
And that is the problem in a nutshell.
Yeah.
The two exceptions I've seen are the groups that tend to support fly fishermen tend to be a little better because water conditions actually matter to whether their donors sell stuff. So they've got to keep the streams clean because they're not going to sell fly rods otherwise.
Well, how is that different than we got to keep fish in the ocean or we're not going to sell?
Because you convince the fishermen that if they buy a faster boat, the fish that they used to catch out of a rowboat with a 5-horse outboard on it, now they need a 31-foot contender with 3 engines.
Okay, but it's water quality is a hard stop. Without that, as a fisherman, you're not going to get. Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. And what was the other one?
Surf casters. Because the businesses that sell to surf casters tend to be more conservation oriented because they are limited. They have to have fish within 100 yards of the beach or they don't catch. And that only happens if you have abundant fish populations. So they tend to be much more willing to support conservation initiatives.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
But everybody else, you just teach people, you just need better electronics and faster boats with longer range and higher, high-tech tackle, everything else. Well, yeah, you used to catch fish with a hand line out of a rowboat.
Yeah, they game themselves around the depletion.
Yeah.
You buy your way around the depletion. Yeah.
About 5 years ago, I was asked to be a plenary speaker at a meeting of the American Fisheries Society, the New York chapter. And what my talk was about was 6 decades of change. And I had pictures from when I was a little kid. And I'm like, this is how we used to fish. And it was crude tackle, it was rowboats, it was slow inboards. And I said, we rarely went more than a mile from the dock. We're fishing with this gear, and on a catch per unit effort basis, we were probably catching more fish than we're catching today when we're having to travel 30 miles to find them. and we've got all the electronics and high-tech gear.
Wow. Did you record that?
I didn't, but it's out on the internet.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's the New York chapter of the American Fisheries Society, and
So if somebody typed that into YouTube and typed in your name,
yeah, it's a
find that?
YouTube. It's a YouTube.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. I'll watch that.
I didn't realize it was out there till somebody told me it was out there.
Oh, okay. So somebody recorded it with a cell phone that was in the
Oh, no.
audience? No, okay.
No.
The organization recorded it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 decades of change in Atlantic fisheries.
Yeah.
That's a
I
great.
used the name of my blog. I called it One Anglers Voyage. People, I can't remember the exact. I was like, fish, people, and politics, 6 decades of change.
Okay. How often do you write on something for your blog?
Every Thursday and every Sunday.
Oh, that's awesome. And how many words?
Ooh. Probably average around 2,000 to 2,500.
That's a lot. And then that's like current issues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The last one I did was a Maryland legislation that would take the state out of compliance with ASMFC on striped bass.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't pass, but it's recently introduced.
Yeah. Well, good for you for just like not taking just finding a way around being censored. You know?
Yeah, that's what annoyed me. I don't like being censored.
Nobody should like censorship. All the ideas should be out there for people to consider.
And the funny thing is, when I was a kid, they used to be. You would pick up a copy of Sports for Field or Outdoor Life or Field and Stream, and they weren't afraid of controversy.
Mm-hmm.
They'd get some really nasty letters in the mail, and they'd publish the nasty letter and make a response to it. But they had no problem talking about conservation issues, whether it was a water quality issue, whether it was, I remember one article, I think it was in Sports Afield, about when it was still legal to shoot golden eagles.
Okay.
And it was a question, they kill our lambs, but you still shouldn't shoot them.
Yeah. Well, that's like I'd say a blessing of like the modern media landscape is that those people aren't the gatekeepers anymore. There are no gatekeepers anymore. If you have something compelling to say and it's compelling enough that a few people tune in, they tell their friends, and the next thing you know, you got your ability to get your message out there is constrained by how compellingly you can put it out, right? And that's fair. That seems fair to me.
It almost goes back to the way it was years ago when people just published broadsheets and posted them in a village square.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is fun, man. I liked hearing a little bit about what you're up to, and the name of your blog now is
One Anglers Voyage.
And if people, I've done this, so if you just type that into Google, you'll find it, folks. So if East Coast fishing is your bag, check it out for sure. Charles, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.